Hello, fellow detectives! Today we're revisiting Stay Tuned for Danger. This is one of my personal favorite Nancy Drew games, and I'm super excited to rewatch this soap opera. It seems that Nancy made headlines solving Secrets Can Kill, so much so that famous soap opera star Maddie Jensen asks her to rush to New York. There's trouble on the set of Light of Our Love. The show's leading man, Rick Arlen, is receiving death threats.
Can you imagine anyone not liking Rick Arlen, daytime's cutest hunk?
We meet Maddie at the Lenox Hill apartment she's renting from Aunt Eloise. High school librarians are getting paid more than I thought. Maddie fills us in on the threats before heading to the studio, but she leaves us a guest pass so we can drop by. We chat with her again in her dressing room, and she reveals that she and Rick used to date. But before we can grill her with anything too hard-hitting, she has to run to set and invites Nancy to watch them film a part of the show.
Rory, I have to talk to you.
I don't want to see you, Serena.
No, Rory, don't go. I love you.
I smell an Emmy. The performance is interrupted when a Klieg light falls from the heavens and almost kills Rick. So of course they wrap for the day and Nancy returns to the dressing rooms, where we finally meet Rick Arlen, daytime's cutest hunk. And he is...
Hello, gorgeous. Where have you been all my life?
Before Nancy leaves the studio, she meets Lillian Weiss, the director of Light of Our Love. She's not happy to see a stranger wandering around her set. She takes our pass card and kicks us out.
But if it's any consolation, I'll be more than happy to show you the door.
We head back to Maddie's and give her the bad news, but Maddie offers to recommend us to her agent as a new client, and we can regain access to the studio by working as an extra.
That sounds great, but what should I say if they ask about you and me?
I know. What are we? Enter Dwayne Powers, Nancy's new agent. Dwayne is too much. He is a bitter ex-actor who hates Rick and is clearly obsessed with Maddie.
You see, Rick foolishly believes acting is a status symbol, not an art form. He's a ladder climber who'll use anyone to crawl his way to the top. A ladder he's sure to fall from one of these days. Well, Nancy, you must be anxious to start this assignment.
This is our only face-to-face conversation with Dwayne, but you can call him any time to gossip about all the messy drama on set. Now that we're an extra, we can go back to the studio as a full-fledged employee, which gives us access to the prop room. The prop room is guarded by Millie Strathhorn, the eccentric owner of the studio. Millie thinks that Rick is actually his character from the soap opera and spends all of her time submitting ideas to write him out of the show. After we collect all of our important little items from the prop room, we can swing by Rick's dressing room and, oh, what's this? Why, let's just let ourselves in and, oh, it's a bomb.
Hello, Rick. Don't try to leave the room. The door's locked.
Nancy expertly defuses the bomb, and we get a call from the show's producer, Bill Pappas, following up to thank us for our heroic service.
We've already checked into this.
We have the opportunity to ask Bill about the studio and the crew working on the set. It's an interesting conversation and our only opportunity to speak to Bill Pappas.
Yes, well, thanks again for your brave efforts today. Goodbye.
We also learn that the entry codes to the studio have been changed following the attack, so we can finally access the studio at night, giving Nancy the chance to snoop Lillian's office. We discover that Lillian also used to date Rick. They had a very public and embarrassing breakup, and Lillian has been dealing with anger management issues. We also discover that a temporary employee named Owen Spader was on set during every attempt on Rick's life. And Owen Spader just happens to be employed by...
Dwayne Powers.
Sounds like a good time to check out what Dwayne might be hiding in his office. Dwayne's office is extremely depressing, full of dying plants and unpaid bills. Actually, I feel kind of at home here. We can snoop his client records, including Maddie's, which looks normal, Rick's, which reveals that he uses a stage name, and Owen Spader's, which appears to be full of bogus information written in Dwayne's own handwriting. Further investigation into Dwayne's paperwork shows us that he is deep in debt after being dropped as Rick's agent. Maddie has even given him a personal loan. But that's not all. Between booking a one-way trip to Rio and writing anonymous love poetry, Dwayne has also found time to doodle this little schematic of the very bomb we found in Rick's dressing room. So, we can wrap this up now, right? Once we've exhausted all of our leads, we receive a phone call from Lillian asking Nancy to meet her at the studio that night. We meet Lillian on set and she hands over a threat she received herself. In a unique twist, the player now has the chance to make a unique accusation against any of the suspects we've met.
Who could be doing this? You must know.
It doesn't change the outcome of the game, but boy is it fun.
Yes, she sure plays the role of Prop Master very well. Prop Master of Death.
Of course, the true culprit is Dwayne Powers.
Here's what happened.
It was actually Rick himself who started the death threats as a publicity stunt. The name signed on the original threats is an anagram of his real surname. Maddie and Lillian inadvertently helped spread suspicion when they joined in, taking the opportunity to each send a threat of their own to the man who publicly broke their hearts and embarrassed them. Dwayne created an alternate identity as stagehand Owen W. Spader, an anagram of Dwayne Powers, and employed Spader with worldwide broadcasting so he could have total access to the studio and unlimited opportunity to eliminate Rick. Dwayne comes after Nancy in the final showdown, but she successfully escapes the studio, and security guard Ralph absolutely bodies Dwayne and takes him into custody. In the epilogue, Rick has renewed his contract with Worldwide, and his and Maddie's characters are getting married. Nancy remarks that she has hopes for their real-life relationship too. Lillian moves to LA to pursue film directing, proving that she is the smartest character in the game, by washing her hands of all of this. I love this game. I think this is one of the best Nancy Drew games. And I think it is unfortunately overlooked because, being over 25 years old and only the second game in the franchise, it does show its age more than most of the catalog. The new 3D character models are notably shiny and jerky, the animation unintentionally hilarious, and overall you can just sense that all of the technology used to make it is probably obsolete. But separating those artifacts from the actual content of the game, I think it really holds up well, and it set a great standard after Secrets Can Kill. Nancy has a very strong characterization now. In Secrets Can Kill, her dialogue was pretty bland, there wasn't a lot of character in the performance, which I imagine was a result of the direction, it just didn't seem like they knew yet where they were taking the character. And now we really get headstrong, sassy Nancy coming out.
Well, for a guy who just barely escaped a terrible accident, you're in an incredibly good mood. Rick's pretty good at loving and leaving them. What a loser.
All of Stay Tuned for Danger is very character-driven, which was a wonderful development after Secrets Can Kill, where the characters were hint machines with single-note motivations. Each character's dialogue feels unique to their voice and serves the story and not just the game. The first character we meet is Maddie. She is our connection to the world of this case as the person who called Nancy for help. Maddie is very much a girl-next-door type. She has a devoted fan base of young girls, and by all accounts is a very sweet, grounded character. She's also very generous. She sees the best in everybody, and allows people to take advantage of her. She is still in love with Rick, despite him openly flaunting other relationships in her face and in the press. We only have her word that he's different behind closed doors, and every other reason to believe Rick is manipulating her.
Rick's not like that. At least he wasn't with me. Everyone has this idea that he dumped me, but it wasn't at all like that.
Oh, come on. Everyone knows how Rick dumped Maddie. Rick gave her some bogus story about needing his space to concentrate on his career.
Maddie feels indebted to Dwayne, one of her oldest friends in the business, and continues to employ him as her agent to the detriment of her own career.
Sometimes I wonder if it would be a smart move. It's just that I feel loyal to Dwayne.
She gives Dwayne a very generous loan to help him save his business, but all the while he's been secretly pining for her and growing resentful. Not exactly a very reciprocal friendship. Lillian resents Maddie for their love triangle.
He had to concentrate on ditching Maddie to date me.
We find these exhausting letters from Maddie's mother. She's just surrounded by people who are trying to take from her, and she remains loyal and optimistic through it all. And in the end...
But the best news is about Maddie and Rick. They finally decided to tie the knot. Well, as Serena and Rory. But who knows? Perhaps it'll rub off on them. There's always hope.
So if you watched my Secrets Can Kill revisit, one of my biggest criticisms was how they handled Connie's storyline, and Maddie's isn't dissimilar. Both of these ladies have a slimy love interest, and in the end, their happy endings are getting the guy. But I think it actually works in Maddie's case. Not works like it's a good ending for her, but I think it narratively makes sense for her character. Connie was very strong-willed and had personal goals that could have superseded getting a boyfriend, so it felt cheap that her only achievement in the end was dating Daryl. But I believe that Maddie would give Rick another chance. It's disappointing and I don't like it. I don't think Rick is going to treat her very well, but it feels natural for the kind of person she is. That brings us to Lillian Weiss, the Veronica to Maddie's Betty. When I first played the game years ago, I definitely saw Lillian as more of a secondary antagonist. I wonder if a lot of players did, because she's rude to Nancy, and that's how stories work when you're young. If a character is mean to the protagonist, who in this case is also you probably won't like them. There's also the element of her and Maddie being pitted against each other, which also contributes to how we perceive Lillian since we are encouraged to like Maddie right away. I definitely think this is something the player is supposed to recognize, it's just not really something you unpack when you're 10. So as I've replayed the game over the years, my opinion on her has changed and I appreciate the character a lot more today. We also see that she's actively doing the work in anger management. I think Lillian could have fallen into an easy, bitchy girl boss trope, but they narrowly avoid it by making it clear that Rick is the catalyst for her feud with Maddie, and showing the player that Lillian is under a lot of major professional and emotional stress, and is doing her best to proactively manage it as well as possible.
I'm afraid that I'm not making a very good impression on Lillian. She doesn't seem to like me very much.
I don't see why she would. Lillian is very professional, though I think she doesn't care for Maddie very much.
Why doesn't she like Maddie?
I'm not sure, but without a doubt it has something to do with Rick. He was always playing off of people's weaknesses, starting rumors and fights.
Speaking of Rick, what is going on with him? Phony is a great word to describe Rick. He flirts with Nancy in this gross, pseudo-suave way, and it's a great introduction to this character who is basically a bad actor's impression of a charming person.
So, how about it, Nancy? Truth or dare?
Okay, truth.
Admit it. You find me irresistible, don't you, Nancy?
Irresistible is not exactly the word I'd use to describe you, Rick.
There is one brief conversation in which Rick openly alludes to the fact that his playboy reputation is part of a public persona, and that he regrets it but isn't sure where to go from here.
I know, I've got this bad reputation as being some kind of Casanova, but everyone's got a second chance, you know? I just wish sometimes I could go back in time, just wake up and find it was just a dream and start all over. I wouldn't be known as Rick the Slick then.
I like this inclusion. I don't think it works against his character at all. We know that he is slimy, and he did treat both Maddie and Lillian really poorly. He probably actually does have regrets about it, but we also don't see him taking any action to mend those relationships or do better, so I think this little bit of insight colors in the character well and gives him some more depth without making it feel like we're suddenly supposed to turn around and like him. That brings us to our big bad...
Dwayne Powers.
I love Dwayne. I think he is an excellent villain because he is so much. And I think they hit a great balance of making him human enough that he's not entirely in a Scooby-Doo episode, but perfectly evil for a game that really is a soap opera itself. Dwayne hits all of the classic villain beats. Threats, bombs, sabotage. He puts on a goofy disguise with a fake mustache. He even has an evil villain monologue.
I'll come down for the final close-up. I'm gonna write you two out of the script forever! So sorry about your short-lived career, Miss Drew.
It's very fun. But also creepy. He's a stalker. He's in love with Maddie while pretending to be her friend. He's very entitled in general and very arrogant. He's always looking for a scapegoat because he won't face the fact that he's brought a lot of his problems on himself. Or just got unlucky, but that is what it is.
Are you jealous of Rick?
Jealous of what? The man can't act his way out of a paper bag, Ms. Drew. I've spent years studying drama, but because I'm not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed fool, I have no place in this business. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I still harbor regrets about not pursuing my acting career further.
And he won't take accountability or make an effort to move on. He just finds someone to assign all of that to and kill them.
Dwayne, why? Why do you hate Rick so much? Maddie and Lillian have more reason to hate him than you do.
More reason than I? Rick Arlen has to die, and I'll tell you why. Because he killed me. He killed Dwayne Powers! I made them stars. I did it all.
He's a little Phantom of the Opera, actually. Dwayne is voiced by Robert Heath. He also voiced Joseph in the final scene. It's one of the voice performances that really stands out for me in the series. It is both perfectly campy and genuinely threatening.
It was a pleasure to be of service. Good day, Miss Drew.
I've been mentioning the camp tone of this game a bit, but I want to highlight that. This game gets some flack for being over the top, but I find that to be in its favor. It's a soap opera about a soap opera, and it really captures the essence of a TV thriller or a mystery serial from the 90s. Everything is elevated, and it takes itself very seriously. None of that is by accident. But if you compare it to the most recent games, and maybe those games define your impression of the series, it does feel very different. The newer games are generally more lighthearted and quippy, and they're less earnest. They poke more fun at themselves. If this isn't the style or the genre you enjoy, that's okay, but being over the top doesn't make the game bad, and I think for this specific game, it makes it good. This game also excels at making the player feel like they are constantly making discoveries, in a game that's actually very linear. It does this with excellent environmental storytelling. Dwayne's office in particular is one of my all-time favorite snoopable locations because of how much we learn just from observing the set. There's so much here that you could easily miss if you weren't interested in opening every drawer or looking at everything on the shelves, and many of these clues aren't necessary to advancing the game, but by taking the time to add these additional clues, it feels like the power of discovery is always in the player's hands. There's a lot less hand-holding from Nancy in the early games compared to the most recent entries. If this game was released today, Nancy would probably say, "Oh my gosh, this is the bomb that was in Rick's dressing room. So the person who made the bomb was Dwayne?" And you wouldn't be able to leave the office until you looked at that drawing. So I obviously don't have many criticisms about the game. I think it is all around incredibly strong. One weak spot is that it doesn't feature many puzzles. I personally don't mind a puzzle-like game when there's a lot of focus on snooping and talking to suspects, but I know plenty of players pick up these games for the puzzles, and this isn't the game to play if that's what you like most about the Nancy Drew series. They've thankfully pivoted from the codes and ciphers model of Secrets Can Kill, but still none of these puzzles are very difficult or creative. Some can even be skipped entirely. The Tower of Hanoi is my personal favorite puzzle anytime it comes up, but in this game nothing gets more difficult than that, so experienced puzzlers won't be challenged here. The other greatest criticism I've seen in reviews of this game revolve around it being cheesy and outdated. I already explained that I find the cheesy tone to really work, and it's something that only makes this game better for me, but I have to admit that this is one of the most clearly dated games in the series. Not in a "this aged like milk" way, but in the literal sense that this game is very specific to the 90s and early 2000s. I was a tween when I first played this game, and if somebody that age picked it up now, there would be nothing for them to connect with. The premise is about soap opera stars being ultra-famous celebrities that our teenage protagonists are starstruck by. Most of the older games do feature some obsolete technology, but this one really goes for it with VHS tapes, landlines, fax machines, dinosaur desktops, creaky audio mixing equipment. And again, that's all stuff that I think defines this game's character really well and is charming to the right audience, but it also does make it the weakest entry point for anyone just discovering the series or revisiting it after a long time. After Secrets Can Kill was remastered in 2010, the fandom started buzzing about the possibility that Stay Tuned for Danger might also be getting a remaster at some point. This did not end up happening, but I'd like to pitch my Stay Tuned for Danger remake. Instead of a soap opera set, I would stay in New York City, but set the game backstage at an off-Broadway theater. We're leaving the soap operas behind. Maddie is a stage actress, she's famous for doing theater, and Rick got his start in theater, but now he's a movie star. He's mainstream famous, but he and Maddie are reuniting in an off-Broadway play. They're doing, they're doing The Last 5 Years. He's been stunt cast, he's the celebrity name that's going to sell tickets. Maddie, Rick, and Dwayne already have theater backgrounds in the game, so it makes sense to just extend that premise in a remake where soap operas wouldn't be as relevant to the target audience anymore. We're retaining the theme that Maddie is perhaps the better actress, the more serious about her work and deserving of greater success, but Rick has surpassed her in fame and popularity. But he doesn't really respect the craft, he just likes the fame and is more interested in pursuing film. Dwayne is already a theater kid, so we don't have to do too much work here. He's absolutely the type of person who believes theater is the highest form of acting. He probably even hates musicals. In the original game, he is bitter on Maddie's behalf that Rick is the more popular actor on the soap, so he would hate that Maddie is doing a cash grab play where Rick gets top billing. His motivation wouldn't be changed at all by changing the premise. In fact, I think it would be enhanced by allowing us to see more of his elitism about acting and his bitterness at giving up on his own acting career. Lillian would also remain the director. I think her storyline could also be exactly the same and work just as well. Her relationship with Rick and rivalry with Maddie would all still be relevant in this setting. But we can do away with some of the most glaringly outdated tech, since Lillian would be unlikely to have a permanent office space at the theater. No more VHS collections of old episodes of the show. Lillian can just carry a laptop with her for us to snoop. Most importantly, we have a built-in reason for Nancy to not have access to her cell phone. Those old theaters have thick walls. She can make calls from Maddie's apartment or a permanent landline at the theater. Not having a phone in your mystery is beneficial to keeping up the tension, and I love a reason a cell phone won't work. Tonally, I think these changes would be pretty consistent with the original theme, still allowing for the melodrama to be in the driver's seat, and it wouldn't require any of the characters to be drastically rewritten. But hopefully it would make for a more timeless entry to an audience who isn't familiar with or nostalgic for the heyday of soap operas. A remake would, of course, allow for more puzzles to be added. Nobody touch the Tower of Hanoi, it's perfect. But the more basic puzzles could be beefed up, and an old theater would offer more places you could reasonably expect to see some odd puzzles built into the environment. I would keep the amazing final showdown, including allowing players to name their suspect, but I would love for the clues the player finds to influence the accusations they can make. Since there are so many little pieces of information that are totally missable, it would feel even more rewarding to unlock the ability to accuse a suspect based on exactly what you saw, and would tie all of the sleuthing together in a very satisfying way. There are a few little mysteries that linger around the game. These didn't fit anywhere else in the video, but I have to bring them up. Whose eye is this? Is it Maddie's eye? Why is it here? Is Nancy hallucinating? Is this a reference to something? Please drop your theories about the floating eyeball. One of the most popular Easter eggs in this game is that the cabinet in Maddie's dressing room connects to Dwayne's office. If you double-click it, you will be instantly transported to Dwayne's filing cabinet. How come? I guess it could be in case the player wanted to skip the cutscene, but nobody would ever pass up a chance to watch these two great actors at work.
I don't want to see you, Serena.
No, Rory, don't go. I love you.
Okay, this last one I actually need answers. Those first two were almost certainly just because. This one keeps me awake. After we defuse the bomb, we can listen to the tape that was in the tape recorder, and it's really garbled. You can bring it to the control booth at the studio and use the mixing equipment to, mix it. I know what I have always expected this puzzle to be is a situation where you get those sliders just right and you hit enhance, and suddenly that garbled mess would be Dwayne's voice crystal clear, and we've cracked the case wide open. But there's no way to clear up the voice at all. All you can do is isolate different tracks.
Don't try that around. Go on. Don't you get my first one? Somewhere in this room is an explosive device that will blow your body to smithereens.
So what are we trying to do here? I've never understood what the solution to this is. Apparently the aim is to somehow connect the background noise to Dwayne's office. But after 25 years, I have yet to figure out which sounds those are. I've looked it up and I just see comments of people being cheeky and saying, just listen to where you might have heard those sounds before. And I beg you to be clearer. Maybe I'm not very discerning as a listener, because all of the sounds on the tape sound like what you hear at any point on the map when generic city noise is playing in the background. None of it sounds to me like anything particular to what you hear near Dwayne's office. so this could be a problem with my ears. I also want to know if anybody has ever uncovered clear audio of the threatening message. I'm assuming there isn't any because it isn't meant to be decoded, but if anybody more adept at parsing game files has found any other versions of this tape, I would love to hear it. I know there is some unused dialogue in the game files, so who knows? Maybe there are still mysteries yet to be solved. Stay Tuned for Danger was released in 1999. It is such a huge improvement from Secrets Can Kill. It delivers some really memorable characters and fun melodrama. The world of this case is so full and entertaining and dark, but also cozy to be in. I have a lot of nostalgia for this game, but I think it holds up really well as a strong foundation for the series, and it set more of a standard for the franchise than Secrets Can Kill did. If you made it this far, let me know what riddle you're making somebody solve before they enter the prop room. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next case.